GuineaPigDan here. I streamed myself building a Kotobukiya Axl model kit a while ago. I bought this kit at Fanime in 2025, and I was pretty glad to finally have model kits of X, Zero, and Axl and complete the trio of Mega Man X protagonists. If you go on my Livestream archive channel, you can watch these streams at their regular speed, but for people who don't have the patience to sit through streams that are several hours long, here's a sped up version, kind of like a time lapse. To fill these 15 minutes, I'll talk about Mega Man X7 and X8, the two games where Axl plays a prominent role. I'm going to ignore the RPG spin-off Command Mission where Axl is a party member because I haven't played that game. I didn't play X7 or X8 when they originally came out on the PlayStation 2. The Mega Man games I had growing up were Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy, which I lost, and the first Mega Man X on Super NES. I played X4 on a friend's Sega Saturn. I got to play the classic series 1 through 8 when I got the Mega Man Anniversary Collection on GameCube, and I also got the X Anniversary Collection on GameCube as well, to play all the X games that I missed out on. However, the X Anniversary Collection only had the first 6 games without X7 or X8. It was from watching Let's Plays on YouTube and visiting Mega Man fan sites where I first learned about Axl and how he was added as a third playable character. I did watch a couple reviews of X7 and X8, like J Reviews and Retropolis, which informed me of how X7 was a massive misstep, transitioning the X series to 3D, while X8 tried to course correct and went back to 2D. But at that point, the damage from X6 and X7 was already done, and the X series pretty much died out. I finally got to play X7 and X8 for myself once I got the X Legacy collections on my Switch. In hindsight, I wish I could have played X7 and X8 without any preconceptions, but listening to J Reviews and Retropolis at least prepared me for what I was going to be in for. So booting up X7 for the first time, I already knew that the voice acting was going to be really cringy, so I did my best to ignore it. Axl is voiced by Len Hart, sorry if I didn't pronounce her name right, and I guess the intention was to try and make Axl sound like he's young and brash, but he just comes off sounding really annoying. I don't know if this is Hart's fault though, because nearly the entire voice cast in X7 gives wooden or bizarre performances, probably due to poor direction. The game's intro cutscene shows that Axl is part of a vigilante group called Red Alert and has the ability to copy and transform into other Reploids. However, Axl runs away from Red Alert when the leadership loses their way, and the intro stage is Axl making his escape. The stage starts off in 2D and teaches you how to shoot, dash, and hover. But right off the bat, moving in X7 feels more sluggish than the previous 6 games. Not a good first impression with the controls, especially if you take heavy damage and you have to watch your character get knocked over and then slowly get back up. The hover on X's 4th armor in X4 worked by jumping and pressing the jump button a second time in midair. However, in X7, in order to hover as Axl, you have to press and hold the jump button. This kind of messes with my muscle memory, and thankfully X8 changed it so that Axl's hover works like the 4th armor's hover. When the intro stage transitions to the first 3D section, the game teaches you how to toggle aiming in 3D and how to use Axl's copy ability. When playing X or Axl, the game will have you automatically lock onto the nearest enemy, whether you're in 2D or 3D mode, which eliminates the challenge of aiming your shots. There's a button to switch targets if there's multiple enemies, and you're taught how to do this by opening a door that has multiple locks that need to be shot. I honestly forgot this button even exists, because aside from this one locked door puzzle in the intro stage, it isn't mandatory anywhere else, so I didn't use it. You can copy some enemies in this area, but unfortunately, Axl's copy ability is pretty underwhelming despite what the game's cutscenes tell you about it being so special. First, you have to charge the copy shot, and then you shoot it at the enemy you want to copy. This takes a long time. You can weaken the enemy with Axl's regular bullets, but if you destroy the enemy normally, you won't be able to copy them. If the copy shot is the final shot that destroys the enemy, they'll drop DNA and Axl can pick it up. Unfortunately, the weapons you get are usually weak or slow, making them pretty useless for combat. Plus, your transformation time is limited, and you change back if you run out of energy. The copy ability isn't actually mandatory to beat any of the stages though, so you can go through the entire game without using it, making Axl's signature ability kind of feel underutilized. It's mostly used for optional paths to collect items or Reploids that need rescuing. Soldier Stone Kong's stage has a rock robot enemy, which Axl can copy that slowly throws rocks and moves very slowly also, so it's not very useful if you're surrounded by quick moving enemies. However, the rock enemy is immune to spikes and allows Axl to safely bypass a spiky pit with some hidden Reploids to save. Flame Hyanard's stage has some flying enemies that Axl can copy and allow him to fly over obstacles and find a rescuable Reploid that's too far to reach with Axl's hover, so the flying ability is a little bit more useful. My favorite enemy to copy though are these robot samurai in Snipe Anteater's stage. They're really slow moving, but they can dash to make up for it. Their main attack is slashing with their katana and shooting a sword beam, but the attack is also pretty slow. I honestly only like the robot samurai because they look cool. When Axl is copying a samurai, he'll be able to bypass some walls and find items, rescuable Reploids, and the Dr. Light capsule for X. And don't worry about getting stuck on the wrong side of a wall if you run out of transformation energy. The robot samurai constantly respawn, so you can just copy them again. Come to think of it, Snipe Anteater's stage is rather short if you play with X and Zero on your team, and don't bother using Axl to get into all the hidden areas. That's one stage whose length is padded out way too much if you're trying to do 100% completion. If Axl uses the copy shot on some smaller enemies, like the bee robots in Snipe Anteater's stage, instead of turning into the enemy, Axl will spawn a drone that attacks other enemies for him for a short time. A little variation. Axl can't copy every enemy though. He says in a cutscene he can only copy Reploids his own size. I should note that Capcom would change their mind on this limitation later. Even though I haven't played Command Mission, I watched some Let's Plays of the game years ago, and in that game, Axl gains the ability to transform into bosses that are much larger than him. But in X7 and X8, you can't copy large enemies or bosses. You'll know an enemy can't be copied if you kill it with the copy shot and they don't drop any DNA, though I would have preferred if enemies that couldn't be copied would just be immune to the copy shot, so the player would know not to bother trying to copy them. The copy ability was improved in X8 by allowing the copy shot to be fired instantly without charging. However, copying Reploids is still mostly for finding optional secrets or hidden items for 100% completion rather than for combat. I guess the one positive thing I can say about the controls is that Axl, Zero, and X all have the air dash from the beginning now, so you don't need a leg upgrade for X or have to beat a certain boss as Zero to get it. Also, Axl has one more unique move. He can do a dodge roll if you press dash twice. You get invincibility frames during the roll, and you can still fire Axl's pistol while mid-roll. I find this most useful during the Vanishing Gungaroo boss fight, where Gungaroo constantly weaves around the arena very quickly, and Axl's roll can allow you to dodge Gungaroo's attacks and fire back at him at the same time. Outside of that, I don't really use the dodge roll that much, but it does look kinda cool. Axl's dodge roll returns in X8, but again, I only use it for certain boss attacks like Vile's electric pinwheel desperation attack. But overall, Axl's introduction to the X series was pretty awkward with X7's bad controls and bad voice acting. Axl eventually meets Zero, and Zero's voice actor gives a really bored-sounding performance. You find out that X is retired from the Maverick Hunters because he's tired of constant fighting and war, and he manages to sound even more annoying and whining than Axl. This is usually regarded as the worst portrayal of X in the series, when all the other games depicted him as a reluctant warrior. The leader of Red Alert, whose name is Get This, Red, contacts the Maverick Hunters in a Zoom call, demanding that they give Axl back. As a challenge, Red unleashes a bunch of Mavericks and his 8 lieutenants to fight the Maverick Hunters over who gets to keep Axl. You can take a wild guess who's really pulling the strings behind Red. Yes, it's Sigma yet again. You're only able to play Axl and Zero at the beginning of X7. X becomes unlocked after you meet one of two conditions. Each stage has 16 rescuable Reploids, and if you rescue 64 of them, X finally grows a spine and rejoins the Maverick Hunters to fight Red Alert. You have to be careful though, because Reploids can be killed if they're attacked by enemies, and if you don't rescue enough, the other way to unlock X is to beat all 8 bosses. So in your first playthrough, you can only go through either half the game or almost the entire game without playing the title character, and X will also be underpowered with no heart tanks or enhancement parts from rescued Reploids. When you beat the game though, X becomes permanently unlocked for that save file, so if you start over, you'll be allowed to play as X after you finish the intro stage. I don't know why the game developers made it so that you have to unlock X, but most likely the answer is they wanted to force players to try playing their new character Axl. Zero is pretty awkward to control since he can only do his saber combo when standing still and risks taking damage from enemies fighting at close range. However, Z-Saber now has the ability to reflect shots back at enemies to compensate, so you have to rely on Axl as your long-range attacker, and another problem becomes apparent. While Axl gets a few unique abilities like his copy ability, hovering, and the dodge roll, combat-wise he's just a weaker version of X with no charge shot, so you can only do scratch damage to enemies and bosses. Once you unlock X, his charge shot and armor pieces he can get from Dr. Light allows him to outperform Axl and Zero. Axl and X even get the same special weapons from the bosses, though to try and make Axl a little bit different, he'll get special guns from 3 bosses. Flame Hyanard gives Axl the ability to attack with double pistols, but I find this weak and not useful. Tornado Tunyon gives Axl a laser gun that can fire through walls and enemies, and can sometimes be useful if you're trying to hit an enemy behind an obstacle. Vanishing Gungaroo gives Axl a grenade launcher, and this is the one ability where Axl has a little bit of an edge over X. The grenade launcher fires blasts that have comparable power to X's charge shots, so while the grenade launcher has a slower rate of fire than Axl's normal bullets, it doesn't require charging like X's charge shots, so the grenade launcher can be useful against some tougher enemies or bosses that don't move too much. Overall though, X7 just feels slow to play, the camera in some 3D sections can be awful to control, and judging jumps in 3D can be awkward and lead to unnecessary deaths falling into pits. I'm looking at you, Win Crowing stage. It's clear the developers had trouble trying to translate Mega Man X into 3D. Axl kinda got screwed over being introduced in a game that was a botched attempt to course correct the X series after the misstep that was X6. If players didn't warm up to Axl, well, too bad, because you're stuck playing as either him or Zero with his riskier close combat until X becomes available. I do have to wonder, would Axl have been received better if X was playable at the start, or if X7 had been another 2D game and not a series shakeup switching to 3D? I guess that's kind of a silly question to ask. The easiest way to get players to like the newer character would be to not introduce him in a crap game with bad voice acting. Now let's talk about Axl and X8. Comparing X7's version of Axl to X8's Axl is like comparing night and day. They changed Axl's voice actor to Jeffrey Watson, who gives a similar young and brash personality, but not as annoying like an X7. X and Zero also get brand new voice actors, so no more whiny X or bored Zero. X8 returns to 2D, and Axl now plays similar to Bass in Mega Man and Bass, having rapid fire and being able to aim in multiple directions. The intro stage of X8 teaches you how to use all three characters, giving everyone a chance to shine. The characters are balanced, with X being the all-arounder, Zero being slower but powerful, and Axl's bullets having less power but making up for it with his multi-direction aim, speed, hover, and dodge roll abilities. All the boss weapons Axl gets are now different from X's weapons, so his playstyle is completely unique. His copy ability unfortunately is still underutilized and is mostly used for just collecting hidden items and not for combat. There is one puzzle I do like though in Dark Mantis' stage, where you have to copy an enemy and then you find a sleeping guard in one area and salute them, so you'll be granted access to a room with a rare metal and a generator that can be turned on to light up the stage. Using Axl's copy ability to disguise himself among other enemies is an interesting idea and unfortunately isn't used anywhere else in the game. The most annoying copy ability puzzle is in Burn Rooster's stage, where Axl has to copy a flying enemy in the middle of the sub area and then backtrack to the beginning of the sub area, dodging tons of instant death spikes. And then Axl turns into the flying enemy so he can fly into a little hole that leads to a room with a rare metal. I wish there were more puzzles involving infiltrating enemy ranks to get into secret areas. X8 has two stages that aren't side-scrollers and require using ride chasers. Gigabolt Mana Wars stage has the player flying around in a city reminiscent of the chase scene from Attack of the Clones. However, it doesn't really matter which character you choose as your pilot, because they'll all control the same. This is my least favorite stage in the game, and I don't attempt it until I've extended the weapon energy gauge, because in this stage, it becomes your boost gauge. Avalanche Yeti is the other ride chaser stage, and here it actually does matter who you choose. When X is a pilot, his shots act like his buster and can be charged. I like Zero the best because his shots are wide and stronger, though they have shorter range. Axl's unfortunately the worst of the three because he rapid fires small weak shots, so using him is like playing the level on hard mode. This is especially apparent if you play Avalanche Yeti's intermission bonus game and you're trying to destroy obstacles to get extra medals, and here Zero is the best character to use. If you're going for 100%, you'll have to play the stage at least twice with X and Zero, and then Zero and Axl. You get off the ride chaser right before the boss, and Zero is needed to double jump on top of Avalanche Yeti's hideout, where there's a Dr. Light capsule for X, and a rare metal that can only be reached with Axl's hover. It's annoying since you have to go through the entire stage twice, and without Zero, you can't get on top of Avalanche Yeti's hideout at all. There is a glitch that'll let you get the rare metal without Axl, but a first-time player not using any guides isn't going to know that. You can abuse switching characters to have X and Zero move through the air far enough to reach the rare metal, and I just remembered if you're playing the original game on PS2, you can use the Flying Zero trick to get up to the rare metal. The Flying Zero glitch was patched in the Legacy Collection port. Just be aware though, Axl doesn't appreciate players who sequence break to avoid playing him. X7 didn't have X's ultimate armor or black armor Zero as unlockables, but X8 brought them back and even gave Axl his own super form, his white armor. The white armor gives Axl infinite hover when he shoots in midair, and infinite transformation time when he uses his copy ability. However, you need to upgrade Axl to 100% and finish off the final boss as Axl with a double attack in order to unlock his white armor. So by the time you get it, having infinite copy ability energy isn't really useful since you've probably already done all the puzzles that require copying enemies. Kotobukiya just put out a model kit of Axl's white armor, but you can tell it's just a recolor of the model kit I'm building here, which is based on Axl's appearance in X7. Axl and all the other characters got slimmer redesigns in X8, so I wonder if the X8 designs will get their own model kits. Overall, while Axl's copy ability is still underutilized, X8 implements it much better than X7. The main issues with X8 is that the difficulty of some stages, especially the two ride chaser stages, and you have to grind for currency to buy all the parts in a shop. While X8 tried to fix X7's mistakes, it was too much too late and the game underperformed. Capcom tried one last time to revive the series with a reboot Mega Man Maverick Hunter X on PSP, but that also underperformed and the series has been dormant since then, unless you count the iOS port of the first Mega Man X, cameos in Rockman X-Over or Crossover, whatever, the versus Capcom fighting games, and X-Dive. I feel like Axl didn't get a fair shake since the X series ended shortly after his introduction. It's too bad that Axl had a very bumpy first impression in his first appearance, had to immediately be retooled for his next two outings in X8 and Command Mission, and then was dropped in Maverick Hunter X since that game was a remake of the first game. It just feels like he was introduced too late into the X series when the games kept getting worse and worse with each new installment, and right when Capcom started to figure out how he could be a viable third playable character alongside X and Zero, he got kicked to the curb along with the rest of the series. If Capcom ever made an X9, I don't know, call it Mega Man X Triple Override? I'm not sure where they would go with it. X8 ends with the final boss Lumine, yeah, this time it's not Sigma, shattering Axl's head crystal and leaving some sort of crystal fragment inside of it. Fans theorize this is supposed to be the origin of Axl's white armor, since it has the same color scheme as Lumine. Would an X9 have Lumine possess Axl in some way, or would Capcom just ignore it and do something else entirely? I don't know. It would be nice to have some sort of resolution, especially with the release of the Legacy collections introducing new players to these games. But on the other hand, it's been so long that I don't know if Capcom would really be like, in order to understand the plot of this game, you must play a game that's over 20 years old. Actually, wait, Metroid Dread kind of did that, coming out 19 years after Fusion. Oh well. To make the copy ability more useful, I'd like it if Axl saved enemy DNA he captured and could turn into Reploids at any time, or have the attacks and weapons you copy actually be useful and not weak or slow. Or have an infiltration mission where Axl has to copy an enemy to blend into somewhere, like that one puzzle in Dark Mantis' stage. I didn't have as much to say about Axl and X8 compared to X7, since X8 is more enjoyable, and X7 is just a mess of a game that's more fun to dunk on than to actually play. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this model kit video and listening to me ramble. Maybe one of these days I'll do something really wild, like stream myself playing Mega Man X7 in Spanish, and use that to do weird Spanish lessons. The Legacy collection gives you the option of playing the Japanese or English versions of X1 through X6, but X7 and X8 allow you to try multiple different languages. For the final assemblage, I'll play this section at regular speed. Thanks for listening to me, and you can watch my streams at twitch.tv/GuineaPigDan. Alright, now I'm going to do the final assemblage. This is for YouTube, yeah, after the stream. Yeah, I was going to do this on camera. Yeah, here we see X0 and Mega Man are like, want to see their friend rebuilt, although Mega Man's like, who the heck is this? Okay, so... other way. Come on. This might take... There we go. There we are. There's Axl's legs. Gotta decide which. I'll be his gun arm. Okay, I need to rotate this around just so I can. Oh, there it is. There we are. Oh, here we go. Just had to do that. There we go. And shoot. Okay, trying to. Where's the bend? There's the bend. Rotate that around. There's Axl's other pistol. So we'll go what TV Tropes calls guns akimbo. Come on, damn it. Yeah, watch GuineaPigDan fail at inserting a part into a shoulder. Okay. There we go. And sticking out a little bit. Oh, shit. Did I? Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah, he's gonna be holding his guns out like, what's his name? Yosemite Sam. There we go. Axl is all assembled. There we go. Ta-da! Yep. They're all a happy family once again. The trio is now complete. And Mega Man's just like the odd man out. Like, who the hell is this? Because they're from completely different time periods. Alrighty. Thank you to everyone who watched me streaming, Axl being built and everything. And, you know, if you sat through, geez, how many hours was that?
I don't know. I'm just gonna guess maybe 5, maybe more total, like just building Axl. But anyway, thank you to everyone who watched this on Twitch, and anyone who's watching this on YouTube now. Thank you very much for being here. GuineaPigDan out, and make sure to follow me on Twitch and everything if you want to see me stream more model kits in the future. Maybe I'll get more armors of Mega Man X, and watch me do art and cook on occasion. So bye bye everybody.